a champion. John Fanta, Deshaun Butler, Field of 68 post-game show. We have a champion. It is Baylor. They beat the brakes off of Gonzaga, 86-70. Season's over. Season's complete. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Sucks to watch that happen the way it did. After the game, after the Final Four, seeing that was just like, sucks. But I mean, like I told you guys the other day, I thought Baylor would win this game. I just thought they were better and they had more. And they obviously displayed it the first 5 minutes throughout the game, leading into the rest of the game. Like, it was evident that they were just better today.
From the jump, It was clear who was better today. I thought, first and foremost, I just want to say we made it through the entire season. We got through an entire season. Nobody expected it. I do feel like, and I don't want to get too sentimental on the point, but I do want to say that when this game was canceled the first time, right? Exactly 4 months ago to the day, today, when it was canceled, that's when we kind of reached a tipping point in college basketball where everyone was saying, more or less, I don't know if we're going to be able to get this done. I don't know if the season's going to happen. If we can't have the most anticipated game in the college basketball regular season that we're ever going to have, how are we going to make this work? How is this going to be possible? How are we going to have this work? And we got there. Credit to Dan Gavitt, credit to the conference commissioners, credit to the young men and women, because I do want to shout out the women's basketball
ladies.
Shout out to the ladies. So shout out to them for going through everything that they went through. And shout out to us, God damn it, for putting together some awesome content for everybody. So
it was amazing.
We don't have a beer tonight, Dave.
Duh.
We have a beer. We're celebrating. What a night. What a game. What a season. Oh man. This was fun.
Let me tell you. How good was Baylor's performance tonight? They're coming on right now. Shield your eyes, folks. That was a performance by the Bears.
I wish you guys could see my wife outside of the office right now just judging me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. You know what? She should be on the show. Sometimes you've been up late.
And you know what else? And you know what else she's going to judge me even more?
God bless her.
And I forgot a cup. So here we go.
Right. Go ahead. Chug it down. Credit to your wife for getting through the season. I hope you're treating her to a beautiful vacation after all this at some point.
Yeah, oh yes, eventually.
Let me tell you, I just want to credit Baylor. Like, that was an absolute clinic from tip to buzzer. Cannot get over how much they pushed Gonzaga around in this game.
Oh my gosh!
And we talk about Baylor's defense, and that defense is phenomenal. But on the offensive end of the floor, the way that they exploited Gonzaga's size with their guards, with the pick and roll, all the things that you thought Gonzaga had to be concerned about ended up coming to fruition, and the Baylor Bears earned this. I can only wonder what we would have been thinking about this game if Baylor didn't go through a late season COVID-19 pause. I think our opinions might have changed because they ended up having a hiccup. That might have been the best thing that ever happened to them. This team really ended up steamrolling their way through this tournament, culminating with this game, and they kind of got overshadowed nationally because you have an unbeaten team in Gonzaga. But I thought that this was just an incredible performance. And you know what, guys? Credit to Scott Drew. He has engineered one of the greatest rebuilds that we've ever seen. Jim Nance said it at the end of the game. Party on in Waco. Party on. The Bears earned this, and genuinely happy for them. First national title in 115 years of existence. Congratulations to Baylor. They should be partying all night in Waco, and I know that they will be. There's so much we could talk about that impressed us in this game. I'm sure you guys are going to get into it. But I got to tell you, what impressed me? Everything. That was a 5-course meal on how to play a game.
It sure was.
It really was.
They give me your initial takes. I know that you had Baylor winning. I did not. Fanta, I can't remember. I think were you with me with Gonzaga?
I had Gonzaga too, and I was dead wrong.
Yeah. So talk to me about what you were most impressed with this Baylor team. What you saw out of them. Look, all right, how about this? Did you expect this level of beatdown coming from Baylor tonight?
Honestly, I expected them to do well in offense. I just didn't know. I didn't know how physical the referees would let the game get. That's always a problem with any defensive team. Like, it doesn't matter if it was Baylor, if it was Houston, whoever. When you have these teams that are like predominantly defensive teams, you can get taken out of a game with a touch foul here or there. Not to mention Baylor's bigs were in foul trouble the entire game. So I was just wondering if they would be able to slow down Gonzaga in transition and be able to defend them in the half court without, it becoming like, a scenario where the referees can step in and like kind of tame Baylor. And that wasn't the case at all. I mean, Baylor was amazing on offense, obviously, and on defense, they were pestering to the point where I was looking on Twitter and I saw people just like, when are you going to call a foul? I'm like, I thought Baylor looked phenomenal tonight defensively. So, I mean, just thinking about how I watched them play the last game, how I've seen Baylor's guards dominate all season. I look back at my WVU game and watched what they just, after WVU, like took them out of everything they can take them out of randomly because we weren't guarding as well this year. And then Baylor just said, you know what, forget it. We're just going to give the ball to Davion Mitchell. We're going to give the ball to Jared Butler, and they're going to figure it out. And then watching what UCLA did with two somewhat bigger guards, I couldn't foresee Gonzaga staying in front of Baylor on the perimeter. Like, I felt like the perimeter was just too much, and Baylor had too much coming off the bench to worry about losing to Gonzaga. It just came down to Gonzaga's defense to me. Baylor's defense to me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, because the big thing for me was that I expected Gonzaga to be able to be much more effective on the offensive end. Everything that Baylor did offensively was like I thought we knew that was going to happen, right?
Yep.
I thought that Baylor would actually be able to run offense, that Gonzaga would actually be able to run offense. I don't want to say disappointed, because like it's very hard to be disappointed by the team that went 31-1. But I thought that Gonzaga would have less issues with the ball pressure that Baylor provided, and that was dead wrong. And it started right from the jump. Like, you could just tell who was the tougher team. Some of it was Suggs, and he got in foul trouble early, which sucked. Nembhard wasn't ready for it. But the big one was Timmy, man. Like, Timmy turned the ball over lots.
You think Timmy was the big one?
No, all of them were. The guards were. But, like, I thought that he would have – I didn't think he would have as much of an issue as he did.
I thought Kispert was the one. I was like,
he was – but, like –
He hasn't been that good.
What is this? What is this?
But
what is this? Troy, what's going on, man? We can't hear you.
You're on mute, Troy.
Hear you. You're on mute. Take yourself. Oh, look at this guy. He hops in the stream. He hijacks the stream, and we can't hear him.
You're still Troy.
Troy, I have patience, Troy. Don't worry about these guys. I got patience, Troy. Take your time, brother. Take your time, brother.
All right. So anyway, here.
I was thinking, Rob. You know what I was thinking? Rob, you said this Saturday, and I thought it was a really good point. You said that Baylor was not going to let Gonzaga dictate who they were in this game. You said Baylor was going to they were going to push around Gonzaga, or at least attempt to. They were going to crash the glass. They were going to be who they are.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how Gonzaga played them. And you know what? To Deshaun's point, Deshaun brought up the point of like the foul trouble and how would that play out. I actually thought Baylor said, you know what, foul trouble or not.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not going to let the whistle dictate how we play this game. And that is exemplified in its greatest form by Mark Vital, who, when Shamwa Chachua goes down with the foul, with about 10 minutes or so in the game, it's a 9-point game if you remember, 10, 11 minutes, 9-point game, and JTT goes to the bench. And I'm thinking, maybe Gonzaga's going to have an opening here to capitalize. Mark Vital stuffs Corey Kispert. That is where your Kispert point, I think, is perfect, because Kispert is taking a shot that Baylor was anticipating the whole way. You can't be that predictable against Baylor's defense. And then what happens? Baylor goes to the other end, and Flagler drains what felt like a dagger.
That hurt. That hurt. I'm not gonna lie to you. That hurt.
That hurt.
I was so impressed with their guards, bro. I was. When I really knew that they were, obviously the first half, it got out of control somewhat pretty quickly. But when it got to when Maceo Teague started getting when he ran off like 8 in a row, I was sitting there. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be bad because obviously Jared Butler was hooping, and that was one of the telltale signs we talked about before, Fanta.
Yes, we did.
That's what we talked about before. It's like if Jared Butler's playing well, then it might be a problem. But Jared Butler was playing well, Davion Mitchell was playing well, and I was just sitting there thinking, all right, well, you know, if anyone else decides to step in and score for Baylor, it could get out of hand. And then Maceo T ran off 8 straight. I was just like, yeah, it's just a matter of time. They could continuously recycle the bigs all they want. They were all in foul trouble.
That's the thing.
But were you before? I'm sorry to even continue like this, but were you worried? Not worried, but more or less intrigued because I thought that when Gonzaga started ball screening and they started getting those switches, and when they had Mayer on Timmy, and then they had other guys on Timmy, and Timmy was getting fouls, and they were getting to the free throw line, and they had their 2 to 3 bigs with 2-3 fouls.
Sure.
I kind of thought they were onto something, and then they didn't stick with it at all. They kind of like strayed away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they definitely did. And there was another thing that they did once in the second half that worked. Against the high ball screen, they tagged with the high man, right? Remember we talked about that?
Yes.
They tagged with the high man. And what that means is that you double the guy coming off the screen, and the player that's not in the corner but higher, the guy on the wing extended, is tagging the roller, which means going to make sure they can't get the pass to the roller. They did it once in the second half and forced a shot clock violation. Every other time they got dunks and wide open threes. One time they did it in the second half and it worked. Anyway, Troy, do we have you?
Yes.
Yes!
Yeah.
He made it finally.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody knows this, and certainly the people on the stream don't know this, but Troy has been asking me to come on like nonstop all year long. And so what I would do is I would text him the link to jump into the stream like when we had 2 minutes left. So that like if he jumped in, then we wouldn't be able to get there. Or I'd be like, oh, my bad, I didn't see the text, just to fuck with him, just because I didn't want to.
And half the time I was like outside with my dog 15 minutes from like being in bed and being like, come on, have I not done enough for you to be on this show?
Apparently,
unbelievable. He's the worst. But all that matters is that I'm here now. And just to hop in, all I will say is this. I was blown away at the fact that Gonzaga was never able to make that run. They were never able to do that against UCLA. They were up 5. They were up 7. They never pushed it to 9 or 11. And they were never able to get it from 9 to 7 to 5 tonight. And I think because of that, it was just like they were around, but they never had the juice to get back in it. And that actually surprised me. Not surprised by anything Baylor did. Baylor has been legit the whole year, but we really needed to see this game to know for sure who is who.
The biggest problem is that you had to know that Gonzaga wasn't going to be able to consistently get stops and wasn't going to be able to string together stops. Yep. And as soon as they were not able to score, as soon as they dug themselves that 10-point hole, like we knew it was over. At least I knew it was over. I was like, I don't think they're going to be able to make a run against this team because they're not going to be able to get stops. And you can't go against a team where you know is going to put up 85. You can't go the first 6 minutes of the game without hitting a field goal. It's just not going to work. And I don't think, it's one thing. It's one thing to watch. You used to hear this about like VCU's press, and you would hear it about West Virginia all the time, Dave, when they were doing the press Virginia thing. Yeah, you can watch these ball the way that they guard the ball on film, and you can have your coaches sit there and say, "This is what they're going to do. This is going to how they're going to guard you." And you can go out there and you can practice it, and you can have your walk-ons, and you can have your bench players, and you can have your practice squad, and you can have the guys that are supposed to be over the scout team go out there and do all the stuff that you expect Baylor to do. You don't know what you're going to get out of Davion Mitchell hawking you until you have Davion Mitchell hawking you. And to me, that was the most evident thing, is that Gonzaga was just not ready for what Baylor was about to throw at them, and it cost them.
Yeah, I feel like just preparation for those things, like you can't, like just like you said, Rob, you can't mimic what teams do, but you can sometimes go overboard in a sense where you're preparing. I think when I was in college, when I played for John Beeline, we ran our 1-3-1. We would play our 1-3-1 defense. It'll be 8-on-5. We would play 1-3-1 defense with 8 offensive players and 5 defensive players to make sure we all got to the 3-point line when guys caught the ball at the 3-point line, to make sure we forced them off and forced them to drive and think to certain things. we practiced when I played in my senior year. We practiced to prepare for Missouri or any team that pressed man to man and ran and jump. We practiced with like 6 guys on the court on defense just to give us that look. So like, it's very difficult to do that because this isn't like a junk defense or this isn't a press. This is just simple man-to-man defense, and Baylor is just amazing at it. And it's just so tough for Gonzaga of all teams. And I say all teams because Gonzaga is a great team this year, but they're great at what they do as opposed to what Baylor does. I kind of feel like Baylor has 4 or 5 guards who are really good basketball players. The team's offense mainly relies on them gapping and kicking for wide open jump shots for threes and obviously putting that much pressure on the rim. You have to collapse in a sense or you're giving up a wide open layup. But I still feel like Baylor at its core, it's still a defensive and rebounding team who has really good guards. Like that's the mix it up. Like they have one guy that maybe isn't a defender, but the rest of those guys, like Jared Butler's not like a lockdown or anything like that. But the rest of those guys, they all get after it.
But
he's still good. But they all get after it.
Here's the thing, like that what they hang their hat on is their ability to lock you up man to man in the half court and their ability to get on the offensive glass. But what makes them elite is the fact that they have 3 guys that are legit great in ball screens. They are the best 3-point shooting team in the country. And it's not because they have one guy shooting a ton of threes. It's because they have 5 guys that shoot 40% from beyond the arc, right? So when you combine what they can do defensively with the way they get on the glass, with the fact that they can space you out and put everybody in ball screens, like that is legitimately what you do in the NBA. You have great on-ball defenders, guys that can defend you in isolation, and guys that you cannot guard one-on-one, and they put the pressure on you to do it because they space the floor. It's unbelievable to watch. And then my favorite part about it is that when Scott Drew first got there, and for like the first 4 or 5 years, when he really got this thing going, like they would run zone, man. They were running like junk 1-3-1s and that bullshit like 1-1-3.
No, it's not bullshit. That shit was elite. That was elite. Like first of all, no one except for the guys at Baylor know how to run it. No one can scout it because they don't know what any of the matches or what anyone's doing.
It's just like 5 guys out there running around, putting their arms up, like, and it was not even a 1-3-1 day. Don't you dare call that.
No, I didn't say it was a 1-3-1. It was like, first of all, it was like a 2-3 set. It's a 2-3, but it has like different. It has different responsibilities within the 2-3, and it was elite because no one knew what the hell they were doing, and they did it amazing, and it kind of helped them win.
But you know what? Here's the thing: Baylor's the better team, and matched up so well with Gonzaga. It's a bad matchup for Gonzaga.
Yeah.
But I do think sometimes this happens in our world. Like 2018 comes to mind. Villanova dominated their way to a national championship, and the 2018 title game wraps up, and everybody's like, what a supreme team, a superior team, individuals that came together. That team had 4 of the top 35 draft picks. And let me tell you, Sam Vecenie came on Saturday night. And if we all recall, he was talking about Davion Mitchell's draft stock kind of rising. And I'm seeing on Twitter, Davion Mitchell needs to be a top 10 pick. Davion Mitchell needs to be a top 10 pick. He need to be a top 10 pick in December. If I'm right now, I'm thinking about him 5 or 6. You know how there's an undefined range in this NBA draft coming up this summer? Like, what are teams going to do from 7 to 12? I'm sorry, that you shouldn't have to think twice once you get past the top 3 or 4 picks in this draft class, if you even have to think that far.
It's top 5.
Tonight,
there's 5 guys at the top of the draft fan that are elite prospects.
The best player in this game was Davion Mitchell, and it wasn't close. It wasn't close. He set the tenor of the game. It didn't help that Suggs was in foul trouble, but you've got to impose your will. And tonight, Davion Mitchell imposed his will on this game. Jared Butler looked like the All-American guard that we know he can be.
Absolutely.
Like, that's the biggest difference for me. If you ask me what is the biggest difference for Baylor these last 2 games, it's that Jared Butler in the first 4 NCAA tournament games for this Baylor team went 6 for 24 from 3-point range. And in the last 2, he went 8 for 11. Ball game. The game's over.
Yeah, and not to mention he had 7 assists tonight and 0 turnovers.
0 turnovers, exactly.
American.
So there was something interesting. I'll actually give Rob a ton of credit for this. I think earlier he said that like Baylor is not beating Gonzaga with this high tech offense. They're just beating them on ball screens. Like, and it's funny because 5-6 years ago when Scott Drew was Scott Drew was early in his Baylor career, people used to criticize him for just rolling the ball out and play. Like he didn't run X's and O's. I mean, it's the very much the Scott Drew can't coach crowd. But he got his guys who bought in, and he plays a simple style, very much similar in vein to John Calipari. Doesn't run a dynamic offense, gets the guys who know how to do that. And that's what he had. Experienced guys who had transferred, so they're logging extra years, guys who wanted to play and just like play hard. And it's hilarious that Baylor, which is like 1B the whole year at worst, it came in thinking that they had no shot when we all were like, I think they can do this. I think they're probably even. Yeah. It's fascinating how far off they were from Gonzaga in the eyes of the general public heading into the night, when they're very much, I mean, now we know they're 10, 15 points better than them.
Well, the problem with that is that what happened, like when they went into their pause, Baylor was legit bad defensively for like 3 or 4 weeks when they got out of their pause. Like that was not a fluke. That was not a narrative. That was not something that the media created. Like they were bad defensively for 3 weeks. And if you ask anybody on that roster, and I guarantee if you ask the coaching staff, they'll tell you the exact same thing. They were bad. That was because they were out of shape, and they had 3 weeks where they had to play a shitload of games. They weren't able to get practice in. They weren't even able to get reps in on shell drill, all that kind of stuff. So once they started clicking again, this was the Baylor team that we saw throughout the whole year. And I think I made this point the other night. On January 28th, 3 days before they went to their pause, Baylor was actually the number 1 team on KenPom. They had actually surpassed Gonzaga on KenPom to take over the number 1 ranking. I want to ask you guys this. There's a couple bigger picture topics that I want to touch on that aren't specifically about this game. First and foremost, is Baylor the best program build in the history of college basketball? Because I think you can make the argument that there is. There's 2 others that I think deserve to be in the same conversation. That's UConn, for what Jim Calhoun was able to build there, turn it to a program that could win 4 NCAA tournaments out of 15 years. Yeah. And the other is Arizona, because what Arizona was before Lute Olson got there was nothing, and he turned it into a juggernaut for like the late 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. Like those Arizona teams, they had Miles Simon, Mike Bibby, Michael Dickerson,
great recruiting, great recruiting. But yeah, UConn, and I'd probably put is Baylor after that. Before out of those 3, I would say Baylor's 2. And UConn is great. Aren't there other teams that had like the same coach that had rebuilds that they rebuilt it? Like what was Duke before Coach K got there?
I do think the circumstances of the rebuild and how it came to be is what's going to weigh it all down. Is because why there was a rebuild. I'm like UConn is probably they're the biggest blue blood that's not a blue blood. I guess.
Yeah, you can say that.
And 4 championships will do that. But Baylor, I mean, they're the SMU, and probably the closest thing in football is probably SMU. And they didn't. I mean, we won't go into the Baylor stuff, but we've never seen anything like it. So there may have been better rebuilds, but given how we got there, I don't think there is.
Yeah, in terms of the how, like that's a great point, Troy. Is this is a unique circumstance here? This program was shoved to the basement, by a lot of people because of things that went way beyond basketball. And frankly, when you have to face that type of criticism, it becomes really difficult to be able to build culture and get the right kids and understand what you're doing. And I'm sure that Scott Drew woke up some mornings and was like, am I doing the right thing? He surely had his doubts. But what's amazing is not only is this a buildup, but you know what else it is, guys? It's a buildup in the conference that was most fit to win a national championship this year. It's built up in the same conference that Bill Self coaches and Chris Beard coaches. Like the Big 12 gives you absolutely no mercy. And for the longest time in this sport, one of the top narratives was, like literally maybe the top regular season narrative was, Kansas will not lose the Big 12 regular season title. They will march on. Well, the last 2 years, Scott Drew has stepped in, and he is here to stay. And that's the thing. The rebuild's complete, but I will go on record right now. This is 1. Baylor's going to have number 2 here sometime in the next 3 or 4 years. I'm buying this stock. I don't think this is like a lone title thing. To me, they are going to be a machine. Scott Drew reminds me, like his culture, his emotion, that smile, that charm. Scott Drew has charm, in my opinion. it kind of gives me Jay Wright vibes. Scott Drew gives me Jay Wright vibes. He does.
Well, he's not the dresser.
No, he's not as cool. He's not as cool as Jay Wright is.
He's got Yokel's Jay Wright. I hear you, Fanta. A very
he's the man. He's
down to earth,
the good guy.
What I will say is this: the reason why I wouldn't put Baylor at number 1 is because we haven't seen it sustained yet. I expect him to sustain.
That's why
UConn did it over the course of 2 decades and a coaching change. Now, the shit kind of went to hell at the end of Kevin Ollie's tenure, but he also won a national title in 2014. Arizona has kept it going, and I do believe that if Sean Miller didn't have this, FBI investigation hanging over his head, he probably would have made it to a Final Four by now. Like, he really had the thing rolling in 2014 and 2015, getting all of the kids from SoCal. So that's why I would put those two above Baylor, because they have sustained longevity. And here's the other question: where do you put Gonzaga in this entire conversation? I don't think that you can have them anywhere near the number 1 spot because of the fact that they haven't won a title yet. And I'm saying yet because they are going to win a title eventually. Mark Few will get it done. But I will say this: the fact that Gonzaga is coming from the West Coast Conference, is coming from fucking Spokane, Washington, which is the middle of nowhere. The only talent that's worse than Spokane, Washington is probably like Connecticut or like New Hampshire. That's probably the only place in America.
Can I ask you a question?
Than Eastern Washington. Hit me.
So how come State and Butler and all these other schools who were mid-majors and solid teams and solid programs can like change conferences and go up to bigger and better conferences, but how come Gonzaga doesn't do that?
They don't want to leave.
I'm always curious about that because it's like, because you get the same nonsense from everybody during the year, which I kind of feel good about it now because the Big 12 won the national championship. But we followed the Big 10 all year. We followed Big 12. We missed as much a little bit on the Pac-12's conversation as much as we shouldn't have. But I mean, we have. And I'm like, Zaga does really well for where they are. At the same time, I kind of feel like people can always hold that against them, saying, they don't play anybody. They don't, have a great conference schedule. When it gets to, regardless of where they lose, they come up short. And then you have this sharp and steel thing, teams that win
So the only reason
Virginia, they play the ACC or the Big 12 and
the simple answer is football.
Yeah, that's you have to acknowledge the fact that they don't have football, and that if they are going to
the step up is
that's a huge problem, because those football schools are going to say, wait a minute, they're not benefiting off our football revenue.
And Butler could go to the Big East, which was not a football dominant conference, where the next step up for Gonzaga would probably be the Mountain West, and that is a fringe power for football. That's the reason. I'm sure now they can work something out, because BYU is an independent for football but plays in the West Coast Conference. There are things, but I think it's like Rob said, like, why would they want to? They got a good thing going,
Tis true.
But if this is going to be a trend, maybe, this narrative has been there now going on a decade.
Isn't it already a trend?
That's what I'm saying. It's like I kind of feel like it's like a detriment to them in a sense where, all right, at the end of the day, we know Gonzaga's going to win their conference. It's a given, and they're going to go play this non-conference schedule where they're going to play all these juggernauts and do well, and they have this good team. And I kind of feel like if they play in a better conference during the season, they can take those punches and then get better. But they never took any real punches during their conference schedule.
Here's the thing with that day. Like, they've been to 6 straight Sweet 16s. They've been to 2 of the last 4 national title games.
They didn't play West Virginia twice.
Yeah, but can I ask you a question though? In the tournament this year, what teams did they play? And I'll throw, if you say Creighton, I look at Creighton as they're not even, as far as talent-wise, Creighton's a good team. They're not Gonzaga. So, like, even then, I look at Creighton as a smaller team. Like if I were to see Creighton against Baylor, I'd be like, well, Baylor's supposed to win because just looking at the way the teams stack up. If I look at Gonzaga, I look at Creighton, and who else did Gonzaga play going into? It's part of being their number one seed, so I grasp that. But if I go off of their non-conference schedule, their conference schedule, and then go all the way into the tournament where they just like not playing the competition, it's like it kind of feels like, all right, well, they came off of their conference schedule, which has been light in comparison to their non-conference schedule, and they go and they get a number one seed. They play a light 16, like whoever the play-in game is. They win that. They go to the next game, it's a lighter version of that. To then go to after the Sweet 16, you play against Creighton, and then still a light version of a team that they're supposed to beat. And it's they haven't got a chance to play anybody.
But here's the problem with that is that one. They were tested. They got everything that BYU could handle in the WCC title game, and they found a way to win that. BYU did not miss a shot. Like BYU's game plan in the first half was don't miss, make every shot you take. Right. Same thing with UCLA in the Final Four. Like UCLA was an 11 seed first four. They made every fucking shot that they took in the Final Four game. Like that was so. There's a stat, and this is one of the craziest things that I've heard about of the Final Four is that there's a stat called shot quality. I don't know if you guys pay attention to this, but it's basically just a metric that this guy puts together to determine what your number of expected points would be based off of how good the shots are that you got and the likelihood that you could get the offensive rebound off of them. And Gonzaga should have beaten UCLA by 22 points on an average night. If both of them had an average shooting night, Gonzaga would have won that game by 22 points.
And you know how many points UCLA was holding their NCAA tournament opponents to below their average regular season? 22 points.
But then look at UCLA's route on the way there, though. Again, and look at their route, and then look who they played against a good Oregon team during the year. They played against granted, Oregon State wasn't great during the season, but it was enough.
I hear you, man. But
I find it strange. That's all.
Gonzaga's been to 6 straight Sweet 16s, right? They've been to 3 Elite Eights in that period, and they've been to 2 national title games. Like, how much more can you do than that? You run into a North Carolina team, and your All-American point guard sprains his ankle, and you run into a North Carolina team that beats you, right? Not much you can do about it. That shit happens. Then in this game, you run into a Baylor team, and maybe we were just wrong, and Baylor was really the team that was historically great and kicking everybody's ass. I don't think that it was a fluke that Gonzaga was as good as they were.
No, it's not. I want to say it's a fluke. Go ahead, though. Go ahead, Fanta. My bad.
Here's the thing for a moment. This tournament is very arbitrary. It's very random. It has a lot of things that happen in it that you really can't project. And Gonzaga has been one of the predictables. You know when a bracket comes out that if you are in the same first weekend as Gonzaga, you're not getting out of it. And I got to tell you, when you consider the fact that there are 353 teams to start a season, if you're one of the final 16 teams left, you're doing something right. And if you're one of the final 16 teams left, then you're doing every year like they've been, then you're really doing something right. I do think these two things can be true. I think that, number one, when you play that conference schedule over the course of 2 months, there takes a tinkering when you are a high seed. And to Rob's point, you've been to 6 straight Sweet 16s, but by the same token, your seed does get benefited by that conference and dominating your way through it and rolling your way through it. So that when you hit that second weekend, when you have to face 4 of that caliber of teams in a row to win a national championship, that's where not playing in the Big 12, where Baylor's getting Kansas, Texas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, back to back to back to back. That's where that does prepare them better. But I'm going to ask you guys this. Had Gonzaga seen a team like Baylor this season before tonight?
There was no team like Baylor, and I think you can make the argument. I'll make the argument right now. There has not been a team like Baylor, at least since I've been doing this. There has not been a team like Baylor since the Ken Palm era started. And I got proof of this. This is definitive proof. They are the first team since 2002 to finish top 5 nationally in defensive turnover percentage, in offensive rebounding percentage and 3-point shooting percentage. Nobody has ever been as good at them at forcing turnovers, at getting offensive rebounds, and at making threes. And those are the 3 of the 4 things, that are the most important things you can do according to the 4 factors, which is like 4 factors. We don't have to go a deep dive into analytics here, but the theory behind the 4 factors, which is created by this guy named Dean Oliver, is that the 4 things you do to be able to be the most efficient team and win games of basketball are free throw rate, shooting percentages, turnover battles, and rebounding battles.
Possessions.
Get the most possessions you can and be as efficient as possible in scoring on those possessions, and you're going to win basketball games. And what Baylor can do is get more possessions better than anybody that we've seen in the history of college basketball, at least in the KenPom era. And they also do the one thing that makes you the most efficient you could possibly be, better than anybody else in college basketball this season, and that's shoot the 3. So, like, the idea that, yes, I hear you, Gonzaga probably should have been better. Also, they were a team that was 31-0, that beat the shit out of Kansas, that beat West Virginia, that beat the shit out of Iowa, that beat a whole bunch of really good teams this year, made it all the way to the national title game. On a night where Baylor played their A game and Gonzaga brought their C game. I get what you're saying, Dave, but I don't want this game to tie into a narrative that says, like, Gonzaga can't win the big one. Because how many teams have we seen over the years where we said, like, you can't win the big one until you actually win the big one, right? Like, Jim Calhoun had it for a while. Bill Self had it for a while. John Calipari had it for a while. Everybody can't win the big one until they actually win the big one.
Jay Wright lost 3 of 4 first-round games and then won 2.
I remember.
But my point is, obviously, I don't. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, not to crap all over all of that, but
By the way, it's really hard to drink Prosecco out of a big bottle. I just want to put that out there. I really should have brought a cup.
That is true. That is true.
Did you not?
That is true. Keep going. It'll get easier.
I was too excited to that I was going to
talk to him, man. Talk to him, man.
I have one question.
If you keep going, it gets easier.
My one question is, Rob, did you not prepare for tonight, or did you just drink all your beer and now you're on Prosecco?
Well,
my stat is this: it's actually a question. Name the last time Gonzaga beat a 3-seed or higher in the NCAA tournament. It was 2000.
Say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Name the last time Gonzaga beat a 3-seed or higher in the NCAA tournament. It was 2000. That's I don't want to write into stat narratives and the seed lines and everything, but like that is something.
No, like to that point, I don't. Obviously, I brought up Gonzaga playing in a conference, and I know everybody's like, "Well, he's saying if you don't play in conference, you won't win an NCAA tournament." No, the point is that if Gonzaga, let's say they don't play in a different tournament, a different conference, and they just play in the conference they're in. If they were to even schedule like a couple non-conference games to prepare themselves for what is to come now, the conference, the knock, because they won those games. And it's a little bit easier to win when you're in your non-conference schedule. You've just beat Kansas. You've already played against the Kansas team. When you go to the next team, if they're not as good as Kansas that day, or if they're whatever, they beat the next teams. They played these teams in a row. So they have a rhythm against a good team. They have rhythm against good teams. They've won it. Now you go into your conference schedule and now you dial it. Like, that's what happens. They're going to dial it back in their conference. You can't tell me if Gonzaga went and played Abilene Christian University 10 times and then went and played Baylor, they'd be just the same team. Like, no, it's not. In real life, it's not that well. So, in general, if they had it in their conference schedule, just to schedule 1 or 2 games before the conference schedule ends, they're going to go into the conference tournament and all that stuff. They're going to play and all these things. But I kind of feel it does them such a big disservice because they are a really great team. And then you go into your conference and then you shit on people. And then you shit. It's not a problem. I don't know. I just kind of feel like
what you're saying is not wrong. But the only problem I have with that narrative is that you're assuming that getting to the national title game means nothing. Like, they got to the national
facts.
Title game.
They got to the title game. They got to the national title game. They did.
They were losing the second weekend, you'd be right. If they couldn't get past the Sweet 16, you'd be right. They've been in 2 of the last 4 national title games. Like, because they're the second best team in America according to these standards, like, they can't win the big one. Like, so what the fuck is the Final Four? Like, is the Final Four not a big one?
Facts.
Elite Eight and get into a Final Four. So, like, I get what you're saying. And look, the problem is, like, that's always going to be there until they actually get it
actually win.
Yeah, until they actually. It's always going to be there until they actually get it done. But in my mind, if you go from the Elite Eight to the Final Four, you won the big one. If you go from the Final Four to the national title game, you won a big one. Just because you haven't won the national title yet does not say anything about the standard of your program. It
definitely doesn't.
You haven't won a national title yet. You only.
I don't hold anything against Gonzaga's program more or less. I just feel like it sucks that they keep missing this, like not keep missing it, but I feel like they definitely could have won the national title, and I feel like they didn't because they did not.
When they have Chet Holmgren and Walker Kessler next year, they're winning the national title. Let's put.
Can I ask you a question? Who else is coming back to that team? Let's talk about that now. Well, who's coming back?
Not Suggs. Not Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, the main 6 guys that played are not going to be there.
So Suggs is gone. I would not be surprised if Ayayi was gone because I think he's going to be an early second round pick.
So Suggs, Ayayi, the seniors.
I think Timmy did not do himself any favors with his performance tonight. Like I thought he was pretty bad against that ball pressure. Like he tried to do his like dribble between people stuff, and like that ain't going to work against Davion Mitchell and Mark Vital. I think that Nembhard, we'll see. Like he's a senior by class. Like he's going to graduate. Like I don't know if it makes sense for him to come back. But like the thing about it is they have so much talent that didn't play.
I know.
Ben Gregg is a top 40 prospect. Umar Ballo is just a stud that from Mali. Like I remember like the 2019 whatevers. Like he was tearing it up there. They got a kid named Pavel whatever. I'm not going to even bother trying to say his name. Julian Strother's like a former top 60 recruit. They got a couple other guys on the bench that are top 60 recruits. You know they're going to be all over that transfer portal because they've been killing it for the transfer. So like I'm not worried about them.
No, they should be the preseason #1 team in the country heading into next year.
Here's my hot take. Anybody doing a preseason top 25 right now is just wasting their fucking time because we have no idea.
I know.
It's like it really is.
Half of the players that are eligible for college basketball next year are in the transfer portal.
Yeah,
and we just probably added and 10 more guys are going in there, and 10 more guys are going in tonight after this game.
Yeah, Butler's in the transfer portal right now.
Yo, I'll be honest. I work for a sports book, and we got odds for the 2022 NCAA tournament, and it's foolish to bet now because you have no we can't even decide who's going to be the #1 team entering the season. It's foolish. It is so up and down, but that's the great thing about it.
But Rob. Go ahead.
Of all the programs in the country, I would say Gonzaga has the most knowns heading into next year.
Really?
It all depends on who decides to come back.
Exactly, because if I look at this roster right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 dudes that have 19 minutes or more. The rest of the guys on their team play 13 minutes or less, and I'm talking about after 13. The next number is 7. None of these guys got a ton of minutes this year.
Yeah,
they did even in conference. The conference that's supposed to get them properly prepared for the NCAA tournament. They were 6 guys top of it.
I will say this: if Hugh does have one weakness, like his big weakness in my mind is that he loves to play his starters and does not get some of the guys, like some of his bench depth, enough minutes to prepare them for the situation.
Yeah,
but those guys are good.
I've seen teams win national championships with 6 guys, and
exactly.
Can we just for a second, who won the national championship tonight? Baylor won the national championship, and Baylor kicked Gonzaga's ass. And heading into this game, people thought that Gonzaga might be the best offensive team in the history of college basketball. Jay Billis, who is the master of all things, apparently, said that it was the best passing team that he had ever seen in his lifetime. When he says something like that, that's not just bullshit. That's real. So for my money, let's give Baylor the credit that it's due. They kicked Gonzaga's ass tonight.
They did. Oh, they did.
Performance, and I know, but we've just spent 20 minutes on Gonzaga, and I just want to bring this up. This tournament is a freaking crapshoot. Now the narrative down in Columbus, Ohio is Chris Holtman can't win in the NCAA tournament. That's crap.
That's crazy.
It's the definition.
That's crazy.
Jay Wright fired in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And if we're going to talk about the best rebuilds, Jay Wright in 2011 stripped his program. He stripped it. He said, I don't like the kids I'm bringing in. I have to get the right kids. I have to figure out a way to rebuild, quote unquote, attitude. Now the guy's got 2 he still has 2 of the last 5 national championships, and he took a team to the Sweet 16 that literally did not possess a point guard. My point is, this tournament is arbitrary. We happen to get the best championship game in terms of anticipation and hype and numbers that we have gotten in the last 16 years. But by the same token, Gonzaga faced UCLA in the Final Four, and nobody ever saw that coming. The point being, if you make the national championship game in this tournament, you are an elite program. And if you've done it two the last 4 years, you're doing something right. They ran into North Carolina, who was not going to lose after getting beat at Chris Jenkins, and they ran into a Baylor team that is an outstanding defensive team and put it all together. And yeah, I know Ohio State fans don't care about basketball where they would push that narrative against Hope. I mean, the point is, I've seen it, but I'm fired up because I just think that in this sport, we're so stuck in how we see things. Like, if you were making a top 25, which would be, I agree with Rob, the definition of crap, people are going to put Kentucky, Carolina in the top 15, top 20 every single time. When I will tell you right now, I will take Michigan, Villanova, Baylor, and Gonzaga before I'll take any of the schools that you think are blue bloods. I'll take Baylor, Villanova, Michigan, Gonzaga, or Virginia over Duke, Kentucky, Carolina, and Kansas. Any day of the week right now in this sport, 8 days a week.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with all of that.
Yeah, so, you guys might be right. Maybe I'm just I want Mark Few to win so bad. It's like Sean, I felt bad for him. I was happy for Scott Drew today, but I just think he's been running such an amazing program, and he always misses out on it. And the only thing that you can think of is this thing. I mean, and then maybe it's not really a thing. It's just more or less just the way the ball falls, man.
You know what, Deshaun, it is part of that. But you know what? I don't think you were necessarily disrespecting Gonzaga as much as you were trying to explain why this happened tonight. I think it was more of you digging deep and saying, how did this happen? Why did they get their ass beat? It's basketball. It's a make-or-miss game. And the fact is, Jared Butler and Maceo Teague were hitting shots that they weren't always in the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm. And look, your point. I'm sorry, Charlie. One thing. Your point about not being prepared for a team that could do what this Baylor team does is 100% accurate. But I also don't know what league you can play in to be ready for what Baylor does, because that fucking team, man. Like the more I watch them in the tournament,
it wasn't even a Baylor thing. I kind of felt like it was just more of the teams that Baylor plays, the consistency of playing in. And I'm not saying just because these teams, the consistency of playing in a league like the Big 10 or the Big 12, these teams lost the first weekend as well. You know what I mean? So it's not a knock on any team that's not in those big conferences. But the one thing I will say about those conferences is that you have to literally bring your A game absolutely every night, because if you don't, you're going to get folded. And I feel like a team like Gonzaga put in that kind of environment, the talented players that they have, they would be one of the I just
get out of here. Hey, let me ask you guys this: what is the best?
I love it.
Season night. What's the best in a week, in a college basketball week? What is the best TV time slot in this sport? I have mine taken always. It's 9:00 ESPN every Monday night with Bob Wischusen and Fran Fraschilla, and that big Monday game. It is the highest level that this sport gets to. And tonight, we saw the highest level this sport gets to on display. The Big 12 was the best college basketball conference there was this year. The middle of the Big 10 got overrated by national media, and as a result, the Big 10 took a dump in the NCAA tournament. The Big 12 was the best, and it showed.
But two things. First, my favorite time slot, the 11:59 Thursday night West Coast tip, because I love watching basketball at 12:59 at night. But yes, you're correct. But also,
you just want to see Bill Walton try to tell stories when he's high.
Let's go. Let's throw it down, big. But kind of to circle it back to just the tournament at large and to counter John's point is that I don't think you can define the Big 10 by this tournament, because, like you said, it's a goddamn 68-team tournament where anything can happen. That's why I always say, I like in any sport, even pro sports, getting to a conference final is enough for me, because winning it all is freaking hard.
I agree with you.
Fans want teams to be great, and they forget how so hard it is to be really consistently good.
Yeah.
And so if you make a Final Four, dude, that's enough. Anything else is house money. You make it to a conference final, house money after that because it's so goddamn hard to get to that point. And then you have so much stress and baggage from the whole year. And I think it's unfair to Gonzaga. They got shat on when they were losing to the 8-9 seeds in the second game of the first weekend. Now they're going to get shat on because they're losing a national championship.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because it's like they've done everything we've wanted. They like we said, they're a nothing program no one has ever heard of. And now they are a legit powerhouse in college basketball on a year-to-year basis. And we're finding reasons to dump on them because they don't play in a power conference.
Those are the same idiots. If Gonzaga had something in Oregon State for the title, they're the same idiots who would say, "Oh, Gonzaga did." Of course, they did the championship. Go eat a hot dog.
I'm not gonna lay off the Big Ten. The Big Ten was just absolutely terrible. So they were terrible in this tournament. So I'm not gonna lay off the Big Ten. But I do agree with you. Your point is completely right as far as Gonzaga. The Big Ten, I'm not refused to
crap on like the SEC when they don't do well in bowl season, like that.
Sure.
It's so hard because every team is different and every matchup is different.
I don't like bowl season. The playoffs should be expanded, and March Madness showed once again why it's the greatest college postseason there is.
Talk Fanta.
The college football playoff can go into a porter potty.
Yeah,
I mean we got one buzzer beater, which is low by everyone's standards. That's just one game winning buzzer beater.
The first
it was unbelievable. The whole.
But here's the thing: we had a lot of game winning shots, right?
Yeah,
two of them were buzzer beaters where they put time back on the clock and nothing really mattered. But they both forced overtime. It was the first game against Florida State and Virginia Tech forced OT, and then it was UCLA and Alabama. But we had, I swear there must have been 10 games where there was a shot in the air at the buzzer that would have won the game that was like a legit good shot. Like Max Asmus, his shot that was in the air, like that moment right there, there's nothing better than that. And I will fight this to the death. Like this is the hill that I will always die on. College basketball has the worst possible way to determine who the best team is. The NCAA tournament is a horrible way to try to figure out who the best team is.
That's why we love it.
Absolute
it's
best
also
way
the best.
to try to figure out who a champion is.
It's the worst and the best. It's the worst and the best. It's just how it is. I'm with you. It's
the best way to determine who's the champion, and your champion's not always going to be the best team.
No,
you can't win a title as a 7 seed, bro.
It's the least true.
Oh, we have more people crashing the stream. Who's this? Who is this guy?
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Oh, dude, are we talking Aussie rules football now? Let's go.
Yeah. Sam, give me your breakdown on Essendon's transfer window.
I got nothing right now, man. I've been so locked into basketball, I didn't even get to watch them win last week.
I wish you could say the same about Tottenham, man. Fuck those guys.
Oh, now you're worried about losing Harry Kane. So, I mean, what have you guys been talking about with this game?
We had a spirited conversation about Gonzaga and the WCC. We talked a lot about whether or not Baylor built up had the greatest program. So you know what? That's actually interesting. I want your take on this, Sam. Is Baylor the greatest program built in the history of the sport?
I mean, is it a better build than Gonzaga? Would be my question.
I would
the
say
resource
yes,
disparity.
I would say yes because Baylor has a title now. I would make the argument yes.
Okay, I can get that. I'm totally good with that if that's your case. I don't know. I don't know how interesting that question is to me, to be honest.
We just spent 20 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, it better be interesting.
Or else we're just losing people by the minute.
It's an invalid question. It's just like I think they've both done a great job building the program, and it's like two totally different contexts surrounding like each situation. Like Baylor had one player on its team literally murder another player and then got like a death penalty of sorts from college basketball. I guess that's kind of a bad phrase for that now that I'm thinking about it. But got all of these crazy penalties and then had to figure out how to rebuild the program. Gonzaga has this Jesuit school of like how many thousands of people? Not many, with very few resources. And now, 6,000 people, and like is one of the 3 best programs in the country. They're as good a chance as anyone to get Chet Holmgren. They're going to get Hunter. They've already gotten Hunter Salas. Like, this is a genuine power now. So it's two different deals, I guess.
Yeah.
I think.
You didn't even mention the best program build in the history of the sport, Sam. You know that, right?
Who?
The West Virginia.
C.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
N.
Sorry. Apologies.
UConn. Yeah, think about it.
But again, to Sam's point, so UConn got to rise to power after the surge from the Big East. Baylor has gotten to rebuild in a Kansas-dominant Big 12 that has also been fueled by your Texases, Iowa State.
Yes, we talked about that earlier. Yeah. That was the point I brought up. Like, Baylor, to complete this rebuild and to now climb the mountain, it's not like they had a wide open door in their league. You're talking about a league that's been dominated by Bill Self for a decade plus, and that Chris Beard coaches in. And you've got Kansas, Texas Tech, Texas. You name Oklahoma with Buddy Hield, Lon Kruger, and what he put together. The Big 12 is stacked. You could talk about Baylor benefiting from that, getting great talent.
Yeah, isn't that more to the Gonzaga point?
Yeah, but to rise up in a league, you're going to have to unseat people in your league. And that's why what Baylor's done has impressed me so much, because they did rise up in their league, and it was validated in this NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, how many former Hall of Fame coaches or future Hall of Fame coaches, are in the Big 12? Like, Deshaun's former coach is certainly going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Someday, hopefully.
Someday, hopefully. No joke. Lon Kruger, I think, has a case, but will probably end up falling short. Chris Beard is an unbelievable coach. We can go up and down the roster here of coaches that have been through the Big 12. Fred Hoiberg for a while was considered one of the best coaches in college basketball until he decided to go to the NBA. So it's, I think that the degree of difficulty is probably harder with Baylor, I would say. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Because the vert is steeper. Because it's a flat cliff with all those teams. But also, as you climb it, you become better and you get more eyeballs because you're playing in that 9 p.m. game on Monday night. If you pull off a big win, you get more eyeballs than any 12-0-3 win that Gonzaga has over Pepperdine. So there is no right answer, I don't think. But because they're at two different ends of the spectrum of size, structure, and what they're dealing with and against.
The thing that's so incredible about them is that you're not supposed to come from the bottom of a power conference and become the power of a power conference. Like, there's a reason why DePaul is DePaul, and we always make DePaul jokes, right? There's a reason why BC is BC, and we always make Boston College jokes. You're not supposed to do what Baylor has done at a school like that, where there is no basketball history there. Like, that's the thing. There is none. The basketball history is Scott Drew and something that happened literally 71 years ago.
Oh, this was the greatest night ever for them. This is the greatest night in Baylor basketball history. When
they're usually known for their women's team, but
I mean, you can honestly
By the way, can we talk about who watched the Baylor? Was it the Elite Eight game or the Final Four? Whatever. What the Elite Eight game? When Kim Mulkey had on the bright orange outfit, did you see that? Anyone see that? Every other coach in the country is wearing like the zip ups and the half zips because it's the COVID. Like, yeah, we're gonna go our Friday casual, and she's out here coaching Baylor in the bright orange pantsuit. I was cracking up.
So can I play devil's advocate on program builds? Like, okay, I'll put, like, you bring up UConn, Rob. I'm staying in the area. And
Fanta, make sure you destroy UConn in this analogy, all right?
No, well, I think.
How can you?
Just to get under Rob's skin for me, just for me.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry. Does UConn actually have a case here, or is this like a Rob troll?
Yeah, no, they do. They
actually really have a case.
10 years ago, they put up the best national championship run of all time, and that's part of. Look what UConn basketball was before Calhoun. It was not.
It was Sam. It was nothing. It was desolate. Like, there wasn't even a women's pro. Like, it was horrible. Storrs, Connecticut is basically like a field with a bunch of cows and like a lot of heroin. That's what
having lived up there, and it still is.
Still is.
Yes. Like the fact that Jim Calhoun turned that into a powerhouse basketball program is ridiculous. The other one that I mentioned, Sam, was Lute Olson in Arizona. So I think
That's a good one.
I think those are the four to me.
Okay,
but Arizona wasn't anything before Luke.
I want to hear what Fanta.
Sorry, go ahead, Fanta. Go. I'm sorry.
Okay, undergraduate campus, about 5,800, about 5,800, 6,000 at most. At most, Catholic school was not a program that you relied on to make NCAA tournament runs, and had one national championship up until the last half decade. And their record over the last 8 seasons is 233 and 45. And this year, everybody had them out, and here they are in the second weekend, and that's Villanova. I mean, when you're talking about program builds, nobody has won more games over the last 8 years than Jay Wright.
The only problem with that is that they won a title in '85. Like they're in my mind, I think you have a better argument calling Villanova a blue blood than you do like putting that in this. You know what I'm saying? Like Villanova's always been awesome to me.
Yeah, they've been good since I've always been good since I was
they have
13.
been identifiable. Yeah, they have,
a good report.
yes, they have, even when they were in 5th place in the Big East in 1996, they had Kerry Kittles. They were identifiable. He was one of the, and they were responsible for up until, I don't know, a decade ago for the biggest upset in championship in tournament history, let alone championship history. But recently, and I think you brought up a good point, is I forgot about this. Jay Wright did his own rebuild there while he was coaching. That's what you don't see, because a lot of coaches don't have the self-awareness to be like, I'm not doing it right, I need to change this, because most coaches want to say, you need to change what you're doing to play for me. And he changed what he was doing to coach his team better.
I mean, like,
every coach has to now change of what they're doing because there are as many transfers as there are. Jay Wright does not have that problem.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to
are
Mike
we
Carney.
missing?
That takes some stones to rebuild everything.
With Mike Carney once.
What's Sam?
Are we missing the obvious one? Like UCLA, like it looks like I'm just like looking here and Googling, like before John Wooden got there, like in the 40s. The last coach before that was 93 and 120.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was also when like NYU was a powerhouse.
I'm not gonna say UCLA.
Yeah, he's submitting.
There were some stones there possible.
Championships in 12 years.
Kareem definitely helped.
No, I mean, no joke. Like Kareem, Bill Walton, all these dudes, like 100% help. But
all you got to do is build a good JV program at that point, team, and work it up. You know?
What year was that again?
I mean, like probably 4 times as old as I am at this point.
I mean, that was back when Robbie Hummel was a freshman.
Hey, shit, I'm older than Robbie, so I can't even say anything. Shut up.
Sam, like as an NBA draft expert, can you speak to, you've spoken to it before, but like the continual greatness of Davion Mitchell again tonight? It's no surprise, but this guy from a two-way standpoint, my goodness.
Yeah, I love Davion. Like Baylor's coaching staff has been on me for the last year and a half, probably. It's been like since early last season saying Davion is the guy. Like Davion is the guy on our roster who's a future pro. We're telling you, this is our dude. And I was a little bit slow to it. Like I didn't really see it last year. I thought he really did improve as a shooter. I mean, he got so much better over the course of last summer. I don't think there's a more improved player in the entire country than Davion Mitchell this year. To go from where he was as a shooter in high school to where he was at Auburn, to where he was even last season at Baylor, to becoming like a 45% three-point shooter. Unbelievable. He's an incredible decision maker and passer out of pick and roll. Unbelievable defender, obviously. It's just such a clean fit in the NBA, I think. Like, I think people are overthinking Davion Mitchell, like, oh, he's older, he's this, he's that. He's an elite level defender who can shoot, who can actually run a reasonable point guard.
And his burst, the thing about him is like he can do all of those things, but his burst and his ability to get by people is like Kemba-esque. Can you think of anyone other than Kemba that has the first step that he has?
I mean, I'd have to like really think. I would imagine yes, probably, but I'd have to like really go back. I don't think I have.
Aaron Brooks, fastest first step I've ever seen. Aaron Brooks.
That's a good one.
But I will say, like with Davion, like he's definitely got to be a lottery pick at this point, right? Like there's no, like I don't care how old this dude is.
Pick him 5 or 6, man. I pick him in the top 10, no brainer.
If he didn't, would you be surprised though?
But
If he doesn't go like,
if he's not like in, let's say like the top 15, would you be surprised? Like, wow, like that's bad.
I would.
No, because there are still enough irrational actors in the NBA to where like very little surprises me at this point. But I mean, like me personally, like I'm gonna have Davion as a top 10 guy. Like I'm gonna feel good about having him. Like I was talking to someone earlier tonight, like he was like, "Yeah, I think I'll bet on Moses Moody, who's 18 years old, like figuring it out over the course of the next couple of years before I bet on Davion Mitchell." And what my response to that was, I mean, Moses Moody doesn't have the tools that Davion does, even just in terms of first step burst, in terms of like even like he's long, but he's not all that athletic. Like he doesn't have that pop. So I don't know. Like I think that he's just a stud. Like why would you not bet on this kid who's an elite competitor, elite worker, like everything across the board? Like I'm in on Davion Mitchell at this point.
Yeah.
Playing devil's advocate real quick here is, and because length and wingspan is all about the NBA draft, but he's 6'2", listed. I don't know how tall he is. He's going to be at least an inch, maybe 2 inches shorter than any other person in the lottery. And 6'2" and 6'1", 6 foot guards are you got to be excellent and have a skill set that is so above, far and above everything else. Is that a concern? And is that a reason why he hasn't been a lottery pick up until essentially tonight, where he's solidified that? But how big of an issue is being a 6'2" guard at the next level?
Very difficult, I would assume.
Yeah, very fucking difficult. Very, very difficult. But the reason that it tends to be difficult is twofold. First, those guys tend to be tough to slot in defensively at that level. I mean, like, I feel good about him defensively at the next level. I don't know about you guys.
Does that mean Goodman's coming?
Did Fanta just run away because Goodman's coming?
I think someone had like an emergency alert broadcast this morning. Yeah, there we go.
Put your TV on mute, Day.
Yeah,
what are you? Are you a rookie?
I'm in this room, so I can't just like go back and forth out here.
That should be the sound Goodman gets when an Indiana fan tweets at him.
He'd be getting that sound all day. I don't know if we can even wish that on Goodman.
He never finished a statement.
Troy, just my take. Sam, I'm going to jump in real quick on the height thing.
Yeah.
So the two guys that I think Davion reminds me the most of, and Sam, tell me if either of these are off base. One is Kemba because of the burst and because of the shot making and the way that he can create space with like the step backs and the cross back and like all of his dribble moves create space. The other guy is Davion Mitchell, or I'm sorry, is Donovan Mitchell.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
And they're both like kind of shorter, really good athletes, really good at kind of scoring in isolation. And I think the difference is that he's a little bit more of a creator and a better passer. But to me, that's kind of where the role I see him, which is why I'm so high on him, because I think he can be a guy that when you let him kind of rock a little bit more and give him less responsibility as a creator and more responsibility kind of as a guy to just go take advantage of the fact you're going to have all this space at the next level, I think he can be a guy that can average like 15 to 18 points at the next level.
Really?
Is that crazy?
Yeah, I kind of because I don't see him shoot the ball not shoot the ball. I don't see him scoring to that elite type of, not elite because 15 a game is an elite, but him walking into a team where the professionals are already there and established, and them handing him the basketball. I don't know if 15, 16 a night is where I see him.
I'm not saying as a rookie. I think he can get there. I think
in due time.
Yeah, I think he can get there. I think that's what his ceiling can be. Like when he's.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I could live with that. I was thinking you were saying rookie year, bam. Like
I'm not quite there right now. And the reason that I would say that is, we saw a flash of like his pull-up game earlier tonight. Like I think he went left to right, right to the left, then like left to right, right foot sidestep, mid-range jumper earlier. Like that's not normal for him. in terms of like that pull-up game as a scorer, kind of like what Deshaun was saying, right? Like he doesn't have that kind of pull-up game typically. Now, maybe he does have that in his bag and like we just don't know, right? Like given the flash we saw tonight, like maybe he just has it. But I mean, the guy, like in terms of Kemba too, like Kemba's handle is, and this is no disrespect to Davion Mitchell because Kemba Walker might have the best handle in the NBA, but like Kemba Walker's handle is like drastically better than Davion Mitchell's.
And he's a better shooter. And he's a better shooter.
He agrees with that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Gary,
Shut up. Leave Gary alone.
No, but
Great
so,
guy. Great guy.
The reason Kemba hit that shot is because Kemba's stagger game and his dribble hesitation was so good. He is so good at going in, stepping back. And it's because he's shorter. So, and like one of our commenters, Dependent Fanatic, said, if you give up 3 inches, then you have to get 3 or more inches of separation. That is what Kemba Walker was so good at, is moving the defender, coming back, going one way, coming back. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if he can create separation, I don't think height, length matters, but I wonder about that at the next level. And also, are they gonna is a GM gonna take a flyer or a lottery pick, gonna waste a lottery pick on a 21-year-old who's undersized? Those are numbers that matter.
Not to mention, I haven't really seen him create that type of separation from the people that he's been playing against. Like,
he has.
When I say he gets away from people, yeah, for sure, he can like hesitate and go downhill in a heartbeat. But as far as side to side, I haven't seen him create that kind of separation away from people. Like, that's one of the things. Like, you brought up Kemba, and I thought it was interesting because, well, Kemba shot the ball great. His ball handling is obviously elite. So obviously it was a little bit easier for him to blow by people. He's a pretty good athlete, quick as far as that comes. But when I look at Davion, I don't see that. Not that style, but I don't see that though.
There are some examples of it, like the 3 that he hit at the end of the first half against Houston. The step back was nasty. Okay. He had one against Villanova where he drives right and crosses over to his left. And I think it was Justin Moore that was guarding him, but he legit created like 10 feet. And I was like, God damn.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
I think that like we often drastically underestimate how fucking good NBA like role players are. Right?
Bro.
Yes.
That's like
Tony,
how about all
Tony
the time?
Allen won the Big 12 Player of the Year award and like didn't get guarded in multiple playoff series. Because he wasn't good enough offensively. Patrick Beverly averaged like 13, 6, and 4 or something in 2 years at Arkansas, was a 5-star prospect. And the dude had to go over to Ukraine to become an NBA player.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like Davion Mitchell, like all due respect, and I love him as a prospect, and I would take him in the top 10. Like, I'm in on him. But I mean,
let me ask you this.
It's tough, man. Like, it's really hard.
And that's what I'm saying. At 6'2", like, I think of, like, Chris Paul. I think of, like all these other guards, and I look at Davion. Obviously, you're thinking of the finished product that he's, like, great point guards. But it's just, like, what you want from a point guard at 6'2", unless he's just, like, De'Aaron Fox, blindingly fast, or he's just freaking the sick athlete from what's our guy's name? I'm slipping. His name is slipping my mind from the Grizzlies. John Morant from the Grizzlies. Like,
oh yeah,
like or just a blindingly amazing shooter from 3.
Elite.
Then it's just like you have to have one absolute elite skill.
Got to be great at something.
Yeah, but he's great at defense. Defense is great. His
why I'm
thing. But I just wonder why. Offensively, that's the thing that kind of I worry about because he's good at a lot of things, but he's not great at those.
I think there's flashes of that offense, and I think because of how hard he plays defensively, there's too much there that I think can translate to the NBA to say I'm waiting for after the top 10
Good point, D. Drew Holiday is a great point.
There's a combination. I agree with D on Drew Holiday. I agree with that. But I also think there's a combination of there's a real undefined nature to this draft after the top 5. And I think there is a bit of a defined nature in Davion Mitchell. And just because he's 21 years of age, I still think there's reason to believe that there's more ceiling there than there might be for the 19-year-old who I've seen more cons than pros from.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Fanta. Like, development is not linear. Like, it happens in spurts, especially for these guys like Davion that are elite level character, hyper competitive,
Mhm.
crazy workers, like the things that we know he is. And again, like I would happily take him in the top 10. But here's the thing. If you told me I was getting Patrick Beverley with the 10th pick in this draft or the 8th pick in this draft,
Sure.
I would take that and be fine with it. And it's
Yes.
part of that.
Tibbs will take
Defined,
it.
quantifiable
Yeah.
product. Yeah.
Tibbs will take
and, like,
Davion Mitchell.
Yeah, you would.
Oh man, he'd be so good with it.
Dude, Tibbs would play him 65 minutes in a 40-minute game.
Facts.
If you're getting anything quantifiable in a superstar-driven league, if you're getting anything quantifiable after the top 5, I'm taking it. Where do I sign the papers? Because it is so hard. It is so hard to get quantifiable talent as the draft deepens. You actually might be in a better position having the 24th pick in the draft than you do the 12th pick in the draft, because there's more pressure on you at 12 to find that guy.
Yeah.
But that guy might be sitting at 24, but was counted out and doubted for a variety of random reasons. There's the randomness of the draft itself. And on draft night, if you pick deeper, you might end up lucking out. You have as much of a shot at – like, this is the nature of the NBA draft. I believe that in most cases, you have as much of a chance as the team that's picking 23rd in the draft as you have with the team picking 15th or 16th, because there's that much of an unknown once you get deeper and deeper.
And I'd rather pick 23rd and let all those 8 teams.
That's what I'm saying.
And pick the guys. Yeah. and then I'll do the Spurs and I'll take Kyle Anderson at 31 and be like, what?
No.
I'll take a 6'10" point guard who was Pac-12 Player of the Year at 31. Like, yes.
I'll take LeBron. At number one. I'm taking the number 1 pick. So I don't want to be in pick 23.
I'll take the grandma in Space Jam over Anthony Bennett.
No.
What about Kyrie Irving? Don't do that. Don't do that for all those number ones. Don't do that.
Was that some Cleveland PTSD there, Fanta?
Yeah.
Also, 2013 was a wash. 2013, there was no number 1 pick. That was I feel bad.
Yeah.
Anthony Bennett doesn't deserve that heat.
Hold on.
Fan is obsessed.
You guys, this is going to be a callback. You guys want to hear a crazy stat? I got a crazy stat for you. Gonzaga against 1, 2, and 3 seasons 2001 is 1-12. Their winning percentage is 7.6%. 14.
Who are those seeds? Who are those teams? I wonder.
I don't remember. But
14, I asked you this question.
No, hold on. 14, 15, and 16 seeds since 2001 are 16 and 224 against 1, 2, and 3 seeds. Their winning percentage is 6.6%. So Gonzaga is basically a 14 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's confirmed. It's mathematically confirmed. It's proof. Dayshawn is right.
When I say it, I'm an idiot. I should have looked where you looked.
Take your bow.
Rob,
Let me see it. Take your victory.
Rob,
Listen, I don't take any joy.
Moment?
I don't take any joy in saying Gonzaga is not good against the top 3 teams. I just wish that they would win this so I can give Fuey his flowers, man.
Don't lie.
He deserves it.
He deserves it. You love it taking your victory laps because you finally got something.
Of course. I'm just gonna text you in the slide and then just talk my crap to you in the slide.
Dude, that's sports, man. Like I found myself rooting for LeBron to win the title in Cleveland because it was like you know what? Like we like to crap on teams for being embarrassing and losing, but then when they make the face turn and they do it the right way, you're like, you know what? As a sports fan, I can at least get behind this. Also, my teams usually suck, so I'm not rooting for them. But like, I can get behind a good story and like watching someone achieve something that no one said they could or the fans said they couldn't. It's cool. As a real sports fan, it makes you feel something, man. It's cool. Like I want to see Gonzaga win so we can stop talking about it.
I want to see Gonzaga win bad.
Look at our last national champion,
Virginia. Yeah.
From the ultimate setback to the ultimate redemption story, from being in a press conference. You brought up that 14, 15, 16, which is what made me think of this. I remember sitting in the press conference down in Charlotte. I had the blessing of actually being in the building for UMBC's upset, wild stuff. And I'm sitting there, and one of the longtime Roanoke, Virginia reporters, I won't unveil his name, but he goes to Kyle Guy is at the podium, literally crying. Kyle, what's the feeling of being the first one to lose to a 16? Like, what an asshole question after that. But just totally like out of line. Like there are questions that you need to ask, and then there's questions that you simply are not asking an 18-year-old kid, and that's exactly what was asked. But that's the pageantry of this sport. Is Mark Few going to climb the mountain? Heck yes. Is there a crowd out there of people who say that Mark Few can't coach? There are losers out there who say it. Just like there's a loser. We are a product of our own product in that every morning on one TV show there's someone who debates, and just this morning said that Jalen Suggs' 40-footer was quote unquote lucky. Like the fact that man is making the amount of money that he gets.
Don't get fired, Fanta.
And he's talking about a kid. We're talking about kids here. You know, at the end of the day, like we could break down every game, every analytic, every metric, and I'm not going to get fired, but I'm going to say this. We are talking about 18 to 22-year-old kids who we all know what life like that was like. It's only harder in 2021 because God only knows the way our world is and has evolved and gone the wrong direction over the last 13 months. You know, not to get too sentimental, but as we close, as it's nearly 1 a.m., like hats off to the kids, the coaches, again, the NCAA. They made this happen, and you tip your cap to say we made it. We made it to the end of this road, and you congratulate Baylor. But you also acknowledge the fact that Gonzaga went 31-1 tonight. They lost, but they had one of the great seasons in the sport's history.
All right, so let's end it with this, guys. Well, I want your favorite, the most memorable moment, your favorite moment, the best thing that you saw in this NCAA tournament that had nothing to do with the Gonzaga UCLA Final Four game, because that's what we're all probably going to end up saying. So Fanta, I'm putting. Oh, Troy, you got one? What do you got?
Yes, let's go. It was absolutely not Texas, not Abilene Christian beating Texas, but Abilene Christian beating Texas, and then the dude on the bench throwing the horns down. I think the national media or national college football or Texas media doing horns down is the most offensive thing you could do. I absolutely love when a bench player on a 14 seed beats a 3 seed and then throws up the most offensive symbol in sports in that state to the team they just beat, and then chased off the head coach to Marquette. Again, and that's just 18-year-olds being 18-year-olds. That's what this really inconsistent, fun sporting event is about. It's just insulting people for no reason. That's
how big of a legend do you think that dude is on the Abilene Christian campus?
Like I said, he is never going to drink for free in the state of Texas again, and in a lot of parts, he's not going to be able to drink in Texas again.
What kind of
you can't do that,
Abilene Christian?
They won't remember.
Yeah,
they won't.
That's
remember.
mine. That's mine.
All right, what do you got, Fanta?
You know, I will go ahead and stick with the Cinderella role, and I just thought what Max Asmus and Kevin O'Banner gave us. It's certainly not often that a 15 seed does what they did. The last one, the only other one was FGCU. And I thought Paul Mills, just the job that he did with this team was fantastic. What impressed me more than anything about Oral Roberts was that both against Ohio State and Florida, they trailed. They trailed for a good portion of those games and still kept on fighting. They're everything that this tournament is about. And to be a 15 seed with college basketball's top scoring duo, I always love when a number throughout the season, sometimes the national person or someone will say, it's skewed. They don't play in a good league. Like that won't last in the tournament. I always love when two kids just prove everybody wrong. And I thought that O'Banner and Asmus were just fantastic in this. So I want to give a hat tip to Oral Roberts, and I want to give a hat tip to the way this tournament started. I fell in love with the Mick Cronin, Hep Cronin connection. It made Mick Cronin lovable, and I was all down for that. It was everything that the last 13 months has been like, where a father and a son haven't seen each other, and they got to live March Madness together. That's awfully cool.
Deshaun?
I'd have to go with the Oregon State Beavers. I was very happy with them, like winning the Pac-12 for the first time and taking that momentum into the tournament and getting 3 dubs. Coach Tangle, I'm a big fan, so I'll be paying attention to them a lot more for sure. Coach. I was just very happy with the way they finished their season off because it could have ended right after the conference tournament.
Sam, what do you got?
Yeah, you guys picked like runs and everything. Like if we're gonna go just like one moment, I would say Evan Mobley, like ending, who was it? Eugene Omayuri's life.
No, it's
dunk.
Kevin.
Oh my gosh. That was
That
insane.
dunk was one of the most fun fucking things I think I've ever seen in my life.
That was
like
insane.
the memes we got just were incredible. Like I don't think I've ever seen someone go like straight through someone's arms who's like in a legal like vertical position like that, in the way that like Evan Mobley made it look like he was dunking on a referee who was signaling that he scored a touchdown. Like it was unbelievable. So that's me. I'm going Evan Mobley.
Oh,
All right,
man.
All right,
So
Rob,
mine-
Come on.
Mine's going to be a little bit different than yours. Mine came at 5:10 p.m. on Thursday, March 18th in Assembly Hall, and that was when Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's tipped off in the first game of the NCAA tournament, because it meant that we had March Madness back. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to get sentimental for a minute, because so this was the hardest year that I've ever had professionally. I got laid off in August, right? I had to build a fucking podcast network from scratch, not knowing how to do any of this stuff, not knowing how to stream, not knowing how to edit video, how to do anything, right? I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't know where any of this stuff was going to come from. And between all the people that have helped out on this podcast network, all the people that have chipped in and helped with advertising revenue, all the people that have retweeted stuff, these 4 idiots here that have come on these streams and sat with us, all the people listening that have come on and consumed the content that we've been creating. It's been probably the hardest I've ever worked in my life, but I've never done anything that's been more rewarding than actually putting something together that is mine, that I've been able to build, that we've been able to develop, and that we've been able to make a little bit of money off of. So I want to thank everybody here, all the people listening, all the people that are watching, all the people that have sat on these streams, all the people that have taken part in the podcast networks. Thank you. This has been awesome. This has been an unbelievable season, capped off by an unbelievable tournament. We did not get the unbelievable game that I was hoping for in the national title game, but we have an unbelievable story with Baylor winning the national title. So to everyone involved, to everybody on the stream, to everybody watching, cheers to you. Let's fucking go.
Man, you guys